Today's episode of Savvy Citizen is a special collaboration with the Gaston County Public Library's podcast, Gaston Speaks. I'll let Angelique and Andrew take it away.
Hello, this is Angelique with the Gaston County Public Library, here with Andrew Pierce, Adam Gobb, and Elizabeth McGee from Savvy Citizen. Well, Andrew's with us, obviously. He is our librarian supervisor of adult services. And we are here today to do a little collaboration for our podcast. And we're just gonna talk about the library podcast, about the library, about Gaston County, and we'll see what happens. All right, do y'all want to just go ahead and introduce yourselves and what you do? We can start with Adam.
Sure. So I've been with the county for almost 3 years. I started in February of 2020. So I had about a week or two to kind of like get my feet underneath me, and was about enough time to get my laptop from IT. And then it was like, congratulations, here comes COVID. Press conferences, shutdowns. This will be great. You've never done this before, but, let's just dive into the deep end with no floaties on and then, have fun. I run the county's communications department. We've grown a little bit over the last 3 years. We have a deputy communications director that we actually stole from the library. Yes. So thank you for her, D'Andrea Bradley. And then we hired Joshua Braswell out of the fellowship program. So he actually... talking about the podcast, he serves as the producer for the Savvy Citizen podcast. So he does all the technical stuff. He does a lot of the booking for us as well. So we have a really good team. But the rest of the team that we work with on Savvy Citizen comes out of the budget and strategy office, and that's where Elizabeth comes in.
Yeah, so I'm Elizabeth McGee, and I'm a budget analyst. I've been with the county for about a year and a half now. And when Janet, the budget director, said, here's your next assignment, it's going to be a podcast, I thought, well, that's not what I expected.
But really, when you got into county government, what did you expect? You do have an MPA, so there's that.
Yeah. I think I expected a lot more Excel spreadsheets. Don't get me wrong. I get my feet wet with some Excel spreadsheets every single day, but I get to take a break by podcasting, which is pretty cool.
We make two jokes in our profession. One, they didn't teach you this in library school. To be a professional librarian, you have to have your MLS. And the other is that other duties as assigned.
Yes.
Is now 50% of my job.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
The actual job description doesn't really match.
I just had my performance review, and it was a lot of other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it's like with human resources, they have like the JAQ, which is basically like you list out what you're supposed to do for your duties and like what the percentage of the time is. And most of my staff, I kind of joke with that. It's like we put down rough outlines. They're like, any given week or any given month, like this could be totally upside down, or it could be something that's not even on here because that's just what happens.
I think a lot of our jobs are pretty seasonal. Well, at least I'm speaking for me in the budget office. It's really seasonal work. We're busy all year round because when we're not in active budget planning season, we're looking at like strategic planning. We're looking at all this other stuff. We get a bunch of projects handed down from the manager's office, like, hey, look into XYZ thing. So it's kind of cool to be able to like throw the podcast in to some of our downtime.
Well, and for us, like our job is a little bit like firefighters. Like we're definitely like we're chilling at the station. We're putting projects together. We're putting paint on the outside of the building, and then it's like, oh, dumpster fire. So yeah, that's a little bit like our week sometimes.
Gotcha. We sometimes have fires here. We've had fires.
You had literal fire?
We were one of the first buildings or one of the first departments to ban smoking before it became a countywide ban, because people were throwing their cigarettes into the the brush, and we had several fire. Angelique is our firefighter extraordinaire.
Oh, nice!
You put out a fire?
We literally have a bottle of water in our office that says like, what does it say?
Old-fashioned fire extinguisher.
Because the fire department, like they kind of got tired of having to come out because it would be little, but it would get in the mulch and it would start smoking and stuff.
Yeah, that's really, really not good.
We kind of joke that we are we're librarians, but we're also social workers and firefighters and all sorts of other things too. So
how do you get measured on that in your performance review? It's like, well, you put out 7 fires this year.
I think I actually put that in one of your PAs that year.
It was during our internship for library school. I put it in like our internship log. Yes. I put out a fire. I had like a picture of like the fire extinguisher or like the bottle, and Yeah, I added it to the portfolio.
No one can say you don't give 110%.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the thing they say about government employees. They're passionate.
They are. They are definitely.
Have to be.
Definitely.
So how long have the two of you been at the library?
Wow. You start first. You've been here a long time.
So I started as a page in October of 2007.
Okay.
And I was a page for about 5 years, like through college and a little bit after. And then I got a part-time position at a branch for like a year. And then I was full-time after that in like 2014. I've been at the main library since then, but my position has changed a little bit. I was an assistant, and then I became like a technician, and now I'm a librarian.
So what does a page do?
Shelf books mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So literally hands-on pages.
Yes, basically. Yeah.
We have 5 of them, and they stay pretty busy because we have a lot of stuff come through. We still circulate around. Post-pandemic's a little different, but let's say 750,000 physical items per year.
That's a lot.
Wow.
And 50% of that come out of this building. So we're the only building that has pages, but that's because it's literally hundreds of thousands of things that have to be shelved over the course of a year. So, Angelique has been here a long time. I started in 2012 at a branch. We actually kind of crossed over there. And then I came to the main library, and I was a clerk, and then a tech, and then a supervisor. And then last year, we actually we took our old circulation section and our old reference section, and we kind of combined them. We were kind of doing parallel things, and so it made sense. We peeled 2 employees off, and they are now our local history and genealogy sections. We actually have a dedicated staff specifically for that because it's such a niche here for our patrons. And now we're the adult services section. So speaking of PAs, I had 20 this year. That was a lot to take care of. Yeah.
Yeah, I have from the Savvy Citizen episode release schedule, because we're recording a bunch of episodes kind of in a 3-day stretch. We just spoke yesterday to Jane and talked to her about kind of the genealogy project and just kind of the work that she and Brian have been doing. And I learned a ton of stuff about the resources that the library has available.
Yeah, and she's got some really cool personal stories. Like, if you don't know those personal stories, you got to go talk to her. It's cool.
Yeah.
We have so many people who ask about that. And we actually have like the ancestry databases where you can come and use them for free here. So the resources that people maybe can't afford or they don't want to pay for it, there's just so many things. And our North Carolina collection is just rich with all sorts of cool local resources.
She 100% convinced me to sign up for a library card, and it's my mission after we're done recording this podcast that I'm going to go get a Gaston County library card.
Yes,
Wow.
I love it. I love it.
I'm going to do it. I brought my ID and everything.
Awesome. We like to hear those stories. So love to hear those stories. But yeah, so we the podcasting thing kind of came about. There was a grant, right, that we didn't get.
So what happened was I went to NCLA in 2019.
Okay.
And I went to a session about podcasting it was run by Dr. Curtis Rogers, who used to work for the South Carolina State Library, and he had a podcast there. I think it was called Library Voices. And I came back here, and we've been talking about a podcast off and on before that, but I was tasked with trying to get a grant for podcasting equipment and stuff like that. We didn't get it, but the budget I created was low enough that we were able to just go ahead and get the equipment anyway. And then in February of 2020, I was able to put out the first episode.
Same thing. February 2020, we were ready to hit the ground running, and then the world went to nowhere. So it was. She did a lot of recording and stuff from her like living room and stuff during that time, just to try to keep up with stuff.
I know, just in my role, like we ended up tapping a lot of folks from the library from different departments to help us when we had the shutdown order, like manning hotlines. So I know that the library staff was incredibly helpful. I mean, you guys still had to do your jobs too, but because things changed and some of the buildings were closed for a while, your willingness to jump in and help with other things that like were kind of like we're just flying by the seat of our pants and just trying to get this done and trying to help the community.
Yeah, that I will say that hotline. I still have some nightmares from the stay-at-home order hotline.
I feel like we should have made like T-shirts. It's like my PTSD is due to the hotline.
We should. Well, in the first week, we had a COVID scare in our section, and we didn't know what to do, so everyone just got sent home while they were awaiting the results. And during that time, the complete shutdown happened, so they stayed at home. So I was having to do it from like my cell phone at home, and it was just ringing and ringing and ringing. And it was crazy.
Wow.
I'm glad we were able to provide that though, because it definitely helped a lot of people. And then literally the next day, I think the state one came in, so it was kind of it was interesting.
Well, and it's like we had that, and then fast forward almost a year later when we launched the vaccines, we had to do another hotline getting people signed up for vaccines, and that I was talking to I forget his name, but the guy in IT that does primarily the phone service, and he's like, "You basically broke our phone lines because we had like 23,000 calls in the first day."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Tim.
Yes.
Tim. Yes.
Tim. Yeah.
He called me that first morning, and it was like 6:30, and I see a number. I'm like, oh, I got to answer it. I've just gotten up, and I was like, COVID, something hotline. And Tim's like, it's me, Andrew. You're fine. I'm just making sure it's working. I was like, oh, thank God. But yeah, that was we definitely we got creative too during COVID. I mean, we started the curbside service here because we really, for a long time there, we couldn't get people in the building, and we like the first day we did curbside, we did more business than like an average at that time period because people were kind of didn't know what was going to happen. And that, by the way, that curbside service still remains. People can actually, we now have a new library app called My Libro. They can literally schedule their curbside. We put it out on a table, they pick it up. And while the pandemic was rough for all of us, there were some cool things that came out of that and some permanent services, including the podcast. But yeah, when we didn't get the grant, our former director, Laurel, said, you know what, I like it. We're going to do it. And so we slowly kind of built it up. For a long time. So we have a podcasting studio now. We just went through some renovations here at the main library, and it's beautiful, and the podcasting studio is wonderful, but the four of us can't fit in there. So we're back to our old setup with utility blankets clipped to hang up.
I like it.
Sure,
It's a little bit like kind of like camping almost.
But the joke was, I was like, how do you record your podcast? We hunker down under dirty blankets. They're not dirty, I promise. That was just to up
right.
the effect of us doing that. But it was because of the success of the podcast that when we were talking about those renovations, I remember I was in that meeting, and our current director, Susan, was like, can we build a podcasting studio? And the folks from Public Works were like, why not? Let's do it. And so it's really cool to how some of those conversations happened and how we went from we're going to try this, we'll see if it works, to having a permanent space, not only for us, but for our patrons, which is really cool too.
So what are your favorite types of podcasts to do?
The ones that we do, we really like the We're Booked Up ones.
Yeah.
Where we like read a book, and then me, Andrew, and a friend of ours, Kendall, who used to work here and is now just sort of a volunteer, we talk about the book that we read and whether we liked it or not. And they usually get pretty rowdy sometimes.
Nice.
So, yeah.
They always go on for like an hour, and but it's been a lot of fun because it does go back to our core mission of we are a resource for those types of things. So it kind of gets that literary part of it. But I always joke because it is funny and we laugh a lot, and there's a lot of inside jokes. There's times where like we just look at each other and laugh, and I'm sure the people listening are like, I don't understand
what's wrong with them.
Yeah. And so a couple of episodes ago, I said I had someone ask me, this was a true story. I had someone ask me, hey, what do you guys like when the recording's not going on? I'm like, pretty much like this. This is how we interact, which is why it is a lot of fun to do that. And then we you do a coming soon report.
Yeah,
so
that's the monthly one that I try to do every month, just to have something on the podcast.
And that's stuff that's coming to the library that people are able to check out. So it's kind of like a preview of all the big titles that are coming in.
Nice.
And then I'm a huge film buff, and I have no life. And so I like an awards guru. And so Angelique has graciously allowed me to rant about 4 times a year about like my Oscar predictions and stuff. So that's kind of fun. And again, we get to tie in, hey, and this movie's available, you can check it out and come see it. So it always ties back to what we do at the library. And then we do those history minutes, right?
Yeah,
those are cool.
Yeah, we get either Zena, one of our adult services librarians, or Brian was last time. He did the library history one that I put up the last time.
Oh, cool.
They write me like a little script, and I'll just read it out and then edit it and post it.
So it's like a couple minutes, but it highlights something cool in local history.
Yeah.
So like there was that flood in McAdenville in 1916. We did that one. Like she said, Brian did a really cool one where he went through the history of the Gaston County Public Library. So that's our most recent history minute. We're always, though, looking for new things. We have some staff members at some of our branch locations that have sort of said, I want to try something. Let's do something. So I think that's where our next really expansion is to bring in other staff people who have these creative ideas. We had one, Karen, who works at our Dallas branch. She did like a ghost story one, a North Carolina ghost story. That was a lot of fun.
We love a spooky story. We have an annual Halloween spooktacular episode where we just let ourselves get really creative.
Yeah, it's way outside the box.
But sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's different and fun. So we're looking forward to that. And then for our history minutes, I kind of want to do this year coming up. So 2023 is the 40th anniversary of our Friends of the Library group. So we have a nonprofit arm that's a separate organization, but that every dime that they raise, they do the annual book sale that people love and line up for, and it goes back to the library in some form. They have renovated branches. They've put in our circ desk up here. They bought the chairs you're sitting in. They bought those, and they're going to replace these tables. These look fine, just so you know, but if you start to move them, they're about to fall apart. So they're a really great organization. So I thought it'd be cool for our history minutes to go through the history of that organization.
Yeah.
And it's 40 years. And so what I like about the podcast is, so one of the cool things, we have a really interesting audience base. So we have a lot right here. Most of our stuff, because she uses something called Podbean, and you can track where the downloads are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have a lot. Most of it's in North Carolina, but then we also have like a consistent listener in Japan. There's one in Kenya. There's Bolivia. In there, Bolivia or Colombia?
No,
in South
so
America?
last month we had like 20 downloads from Spain.
How
randomly.
random.
Yeah, and then we had 5 from Belgium this month. And we've just had like random countries every once in a while, like the UK, Mexico, Bolivia, Russia, Kenya every once in a while. So yeah, we just get little random international listeners every once in a while.
Do you think it has anything to do with like a particular book that you're previewing?
I think a lot of them, some of them I think are mostly for his like movie, Emmy and Oscar nominations things. It's like TV and movies are more like that. And then some of it is for the, I think we're booked up stuff because it's the media stuff that people can all over the world can relate to.
Right.
So.
But even if it's one person, I'm like, we're international.
That's right.
We're international.
You're
That's
big time,
cool.
big time.
Internationally reviewed.
Yes. We're not going to say whether it's good or not. We are internationally reviewed.
Right.
That's what
Internationally
matters.
reviewed.
Podcasting is such a cool medium, and it's something that a lot of people are breaking into. And we actually got a cool opportunity at NCLA. We did a presentation. It was virtual, which I hated, but where we got to present about our podcasting experience. And Angelique went through like all the equipment, all that stuff. I don't know what she's talking about, but it sounded really good. And so because of that, other libraries in North Carolina are hopefully launching their own podcasts. So we kind of feel like not only did we get to do something cool here that's unique and it reaches a new audience, but then we're hoping that it expands and we're able to help other people in our profession, because we're a profession that, how should I put this? Libraries, when people find out everything that libraries do, they get really excited about it. Oh, I didn't know the library did that. I think our biggest issue is that people don't know that we do those things. Yep. And so anything that we can do to connect to new people, even people all over the world, to let people know what public libraries do for their communities is a really exciting thing. So for us to not only do it here, but to see other county libraries across North Carolina being able to do the same thing was kind of cool. We got a lot of positive feedback on that presentation. Yeah.
So I don't want to poach too much from Brian's episode, but how far back does the history of the Gaston County Library go? Because obviously the county itself is 175 years, but how long have we had a library?
I'm trying to think. Well, we've been in this building 44 years, I believe now. It goes back. I'm trying to think exactly. She's looking it up, which is good. It started in a dentist office.
Mm-hmm. Really?
There was a dentist.
It started in the YMCA where the dentist office was.
Right.
I remember that much.
And the dentist there decided, and then I think our first director was Lottie Blake, who moved it to that. And the building still exists on 2nd Avenue. There used to be a library there. I think we switched with the city. The city owned this land. We own that building. So now the city, I don't know if the city still owns it. That was 78. But so we switched with them, and then we moved into that building. We're there for a long, long time. And then Barbara Hefner in the 1970s, she had this plan. So I can talk about it now because all the people who are involved are no longer with us. But she decided to never. So sometimes we have finite amount of space. So sometimes when the book has reached its journey, it's time for it to go. And she refused to weed any items out, and she let it pile up on the floors. And she used that as a reason to ask the commissioners to say we needed a new library. So she basically gamed them into building this brand new library.
Wow.
When this
but
building
it
was
worked.
built, it worked.
Kudos to her.
She we opened the building. 2 months later, she retired. That was her goal.
Wow.
As soon as she got it done, she retired.
I love a woman with a plan.
Yeah. And she had it. And apparently she went to every commissioners meeting back in the 70s, and she would not let it go. And she would bring pictures of, look, we have no space and all this stuff. So she is the reason, may she rest in peace, she's the reason we have this library. So we've been here 44 years, and in the first probably 38 of that, not one renovation or anything actually ever happened here.
Wow.
We had original carpet and that kind of stuff, original wallpaper. And so a couple of years ago, the Friends really started it. And then our wonderful Gaston County Public Works Department took up the mantle. We have renovated, I think 8 branches. 7 of our 9 branch locations. And then this building, we've been through several renovations. So we finally have like newer carpet, newer paint, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for about 38 years, it was the same. You could see the wallpaper was starting to peel, and they had the original like shag carpet down the basement from the 70s. But let me tell you something, they made carpet back. That stuff lasted. They don't make it like that anymore. So that's kind of exciting. It was interesting because you could tell for some folks when they started peeling off that wallpaper, it was kind of like, almost like sad because it felt like the history was going with it. But then when it came back and it looked nice, you're like, oh, this is so much better than what we had.
Never mind.
Yeah, the library has been in existence for many, many, probably 70, 80 years at this point in some sort of form. We opened a lot of our branches in like the 60s, I believe. And we have so many branches. So most counties our size have like 4 larger libraries. We have 10 locations. It's because we have so many great little towns and cities throughout Gaston County. And when they started adding libraries, they wanted their own.
Yeah.
So we have a lot. So we're the biggest one, the main library, and you have a lot of these smaller branch locations. And then in 2001, we added our Union Road branch. And that was an effort from that community. That south side of the county was growing, and they're like, we want a library. And so people donated the land and rallied and got that built. So that was really exciting. And then I don't know when we opened our Ferguson branch. We have a branch in the Irwin Center, which is a city of Gastonia property in Highland. And that one came a little bit later as well. But Dr. Ferguson, I think, really spearheaded that at the time to make sure that community had a place. So yeah, we have 10 locations. We've been around for a long time. And I feel like we've done a really good job of reinventing ourselves. People always ask, are there still books? So we have lots of books on the shelf. There will always be books. But then we also have expanded like our online collection. So we have a really great ebook and e-audiobook collection and streaming film and things like that through Hoopla and through the North Carolina Digital Library through Libby. So we've kept up with the times in a lot of ways. I think what this pandemic taught us is, so when we closed down, obviously our e-content numbers shot up for a couple months. And of course our book numbers were flat because no one was in here. The second we started doing the curbside, it reversed. So even though people turned to that e-content, the second they were able to get their hands on a physical book again, they were just immediately that same reaction. I think, especially with like the online school and the Zoom meetings, if I never have to sit through another Zoom meeting, I don't know about you guys, again in my life, I would be happy.
What? You're saying you don't enjoy sitting there going, Tom, you're on mute. We can't hear you. What? No, the camera. No, it's breaking up. Is it your internet? Is it mine?
It was awful. I hate it. It was wonderful that we were able to do it and continue to have some sort of connection. But I have to run the Zoom for my Rotary Club too, and I'm like, God, I'm so tired of this. Let's just all be here now. But once people, I think they needed that physical. I think they were tired of screens and things, and so they were able to come back to that. We also really happy we were able to start doing programs again. So a lot of people come to the library specifically for our various programs. We have everything from baby story time to senior tech talks. So, 1 to 92 or whatever, you can come in and get a free program. We have so many cool, we call it Livature Library. So it's like author visits. Tonight we have the second night of a readers theater group. This is a local group, and they literally they're on the stage and they just read this play, but it's hilarious and it's so much fun. So it's like free live theater which you can't get free anything nowadays.
No.
So,
It's really cool.
we have movie nights. We have job fairs. We've connected with our Gaston Workforce Development Board, and we open up the space. So it's a really cool space. And I always tell people there's a difference between space and place. Yeah, we're the space, we're the library, we circulate books, but I think we really become a community place where people gather and they like we had this wonderful sculpture called the Pillar of Enlightenment, and it was great. It was from a really cool local artist named Juan Logan, and he's a legend. I think he actually has an exhibit right now in the Duke Art Museum, and even though I'm a Carolina grad, I'm still supportive of him in that. But we really wanted to reinvent our space, and we were not curating it. It was a jungle gym. We found gum underneath it, and so our Gaston County Museum took it for us, and they cleaned it up, and it's now on display, and people can go and see it. And then we carpeted it over where it was. It had this awful parquet floor that had started to not look good because it had been there since like 94. No one had really kept it up. And we added like 6 or 7 comfortable chairs. And we didn't think anything of it. They are almost constantly in use. People just wanting to take a break under the skylight. It's really great natural light. We've added study rooms. So there's 4 study rooms in our podcast. They are almost continuously in use. People wanting that space. So it's the library definitely in its many, many decades has continually reinvented itself. And I think this Gaston Speaks podcast is a huge part of that too, being able to continue to connect. And it gives me a place to like vent and, talk about my favorite movies. And I always enjoy stuff like that, but connect with different audiences. And it's all thanks to this one. She's quiet, but she doesn't give herself enough credit. She knew nothing about it. She bought the equipment. She taught herself how to record, taught herself how to edit. Just took classes, did all sorts of stuff, and made it happen. So I just talk, and then I leave, and then she does all the work.
Yeah, before we started Savvy Citizen, I was picking Angelique's brain about, like, what'd you guys get for equipment, and how are you doing this?
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me that when you were talking about the renovation, to see that now where you've got the rooms and they're in use, that's got to be a good feeling. Because anytime you do a renovation, it's like, did we get it right? Do we add the things that the community was looking for? And to like almost immediately, because it hasn't been that long since the renovation has been complete,
right,
to have those being used. And then you guys are actually doing almost like a podcast tutorial if people want to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
What does that look like?
So over the summer, I applied for another grant, and I managed to get it to buy more equipment for public use and for staff use. So we have a public use podcast kit that can be used here in the library in our podcast booth. And if a patron wants to learn how to use it, they can do a Book a Librarian, which is another service we offer for patrons who want to know how to learn to use their own devices, like personal devices, laptops, cell phones, things like that.
Sure.
And they can book a librarian session with me, and I'll teach them how to use the what we have is a Zoom H6 recorder, like what we have here. Mm-hmm. And then we have like 2 microphones, 2 headphone sets, and then they can just go in our podcast booth and record whatever they want.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She also did some Podcast 101 courses, like bigger classes across the system. We had them in several branches over the course of September as we rolled, and then we rolled it out in October. And we even had staff-specific ones. There were staff members who wanted to know how to do it. And so we had staff training sessions as well. So those were really popular, well-attended. I do like the one where at the end of, I probably shouldn't say this. I'm going to say it anyway. At the end of one of them, someone said, now, what is a podcast? It was like the end of the thing. Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about?
And I think it was, they got everything else, but the actual definition of what they were talking about. But that was funny. But so, yeah, she's done a lot of legwork to make this successful. And I really like the idea that people can start using the library for their own, because podcasting is so popular and it's so pervasive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who are like, you know what, I have some thoughts. And I want to share them with the world, but I don't want to buy all this equipment. Now I can just go to the library, rent out a room, and do it. Yeah. And that's really exciting. I don't know if we've had anyone yet do it.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of, but it'll build. It'll build.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially we talk about the study rooms. We had to remove several ranges, and we had to start at the other end of the library and move every single book down. Weed out some stuff and then move it down. And so when he got to the end, I was like, these better be worth it.
Right.
Because it was a lot of work, and they have been. They have been absolutely, I mean, they're just stacked full of people all the time. We have tutors using them. We had like a mini HOA meeting, I think, last night that came in. They only needed like 10 people. They could fit in the bigger one. And so it's exciting to see. we have for years, the entire time I've been here, do you guys have a study room? Like it's constantly, and we're like, well, you can go to a dark corner of the library where it's quiet, or you can rent one of the big rooms like this one. Who wants to study in a room that's meant for 150 people? And so finally being able to check that off of the patron wish list is a big deal for us. And also that the construction is done is also a big deal for us.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot that we did. We did a lot in our children's room. That was really exciting. We added a bathroom in the children's room, which is every time someone had to go to the bathroom, you had to pack up everything to go to the lobby because you don't want to send your kids,
Right.
They also added a room that's specifically for, we call it the nursing calming room. So mothers can nurse anywhere, but if they'd like to have that space, they can. We also have a lot of kids with sensory issues. And I love our children's room, but it's like color, bright, loud, and so some kids just get overwhelmed, and there's now a room, they have sensory things in there, they can dim the lights, and they can calm kids down, and that has been a boon for a lot of parents, especially if they have kids who are like on the spectrum that really need that space, be able to go in there, get everything taken care of, calm down, and then be able to come back out and enjoy the library. So that was also a really cool addition. So the construction was fantastic. It took a lot. And literally they were going to start on the Monday of the Dr. King holiday, and it snowed.
Oh.
Yep. And I think we were closed. And so it was like, this is a bad omen for this getting done, but it did. And it's been a really exciting. And like in our branch location, some of the renovations that they did, we renovated 3 or 4 during COVID. I think Dallas, Stanley, Mount Holly, and our Ferguson branch, we literally were like, we'll just close them down and we got a lot of them done, but they are beautiful buildings and they look really, really fantastic. Particularly Stanley, they had to gut the entire interior of that branch and reroute like all the HVAC and everything. It took forever, but the end product is really, really nice. And in that community, it's you walk in, you're like, whoa, it's neat. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's weird to think about. It's like taking advantage of quote unquote opportunities that the pandemic provided. Like, the library and, with Public Works, definitely did that.
Yep. Again, it was not obviously we would never look back at it fondly those 2 years, but there were some great opportunities that came out of that. And like I said, that was a big one being able to get, and we figured that would take 5-6 years because we would do one at a time. So being able to just knock them all out at one time really, really helped speed up that process. Because our former director really made that her mission of we are going to have newer looking spaces. So, and she retired literally like not long after they were completed. It's kind of like the Miss Hefner. She got the building built and she was ready to go. I think Laurel's like, I did it. It's time for Susan to come in and take over. So, that was the several positives. We also did not have a COVID outbreak here at the library. We had like 1 or 2 people, but we never had like the massive outbreak.
Oh, that's
Wow.
fantastic.
You might be the only, I think our department didn't, but we're so small that like, it's hard for us to have an outbreak. It's like, oh, you have 2 people. What do you do? That's not an outbreak. But yeah,
Right.
I think you guys are maybe the only ones that didn't.
Yeah. And we, especially in our section, we have like 16 people sharing a very small space, running in and out all the time. I'm like, there's no way. Either we had it and we were all, we didn't know it because we weren't, but we never had. We had a few incidences, but nothing crazy. That was nice. I had nightmares of like my entire staff being wiped out.
Oh,
and then I'm like, it's just me on the desk by myself. I had those thoughts, and we never had to do that. That was good.
stay vigilant. The budget department had our outbreak like 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, 3 out of 6 of us
Oh wow.
got it
Well,
all at once.
In February, we didn't have in October, we didn't have everyone got tested, but there was that upper respiratory crud thing that was
Yes.
going around.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had about 9 or 10 staff members and 2 volunteers that got it. Yeah. It didn't knock us out like COVID, but it was rough. So yeah, definitely stay vigilant, everybody.
I feel like you guys got it at like the best possible time for budget though.
Yeah. If there was a way that we could have timed all getting sick with COVID, we timed it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if that had happened in like April,
Yeah.
that would have been chaos.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We would have been. I don't know. I don't know what we would have done.
Matt's hair would be a lot more gray
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because we'd be putting him back to a lot of budget use since that's his background.
You're on deck.
Right, pretty much. So have you had one particular episode for the 2 of you that has stood out as like your favorite, or one that has been the most popular, or anything kind of as you've gone along in the podcast that's kind of surprised you that you didn't expect? I know that's like 3 different unique questions all wrapped into one, but I'm just doing a brain dump here.
Probably one of my favorite episodes would be one of our We're Booked Up ones. And it was probably the one we did in February of this year for a book called Bringing Down the Duke. None of us really liked it.
Oh, okay.
And we were all a little like punch drunk that day, so we were a little off the rails, and I had to edit out a lot of stuff. But we had a lot of fun recording it.
I like the one we did last year. We did like our Christmas book. We always ask the question, who would you cast like for the characters? Mm-hmm. And it just went off the rails. And there was this one older character, and Kendall said, I thought he was going to die on the bench. There's like this scene where he like falls asleep on the bench out in the snow, in this Christmas village. And she's like, I thought he was going to die. And then we were casting people, and I was like, Ed Astor would be great for that. And he literally had died like 2 days before. I'm like, this is awful. But it ended up being a hilarious episode. It was so much fun. But yeah, I love, Kendall's really great. And when we go off the rails, again, I think we're funny. I hope other people think we're funny. Maddie, our social media extraordinaire here at the library, she thinks we're funny. I always give her a shout out because she was like, that was so funny. I'm like, okay, good. One person.
Yeah.
One person to laugh. I always enjoy our Oscar and Emmy ones, but that's just because poor Angelique, she'll just be like, all right, and on to the next category, because then I just go. But I always enjoy those just because it's something that's a personal thing that I always enjoy because I'm such a film and television buff. But being able to share that and make it a part of what you do, I love when you're able to take something that you love in your personal life and it can be something that has a positive impact on your professional life.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
It's always fun. Yeah, that poor Bringing Down the Duke. There was like 15 minutes there she had to edit out. Yeah. It went awry. It went down a left field.
So you're saying that you didn't like send that episode to like that author's publicist?
No.
There've been several. We think James Patterson's going to come down on us pretty hard because we've read 2 of his and we hated them. They make for really great, by the way. Because if everyone likes the book, it's actually not as fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that part was great.
Right. So we read these 2 James Patterson ones that he wrote with a guy named J.D. Barker, and they're like horror light, and we just tore them to shreds.
Did not like
I feel like James Patterson's gotten to the point in his career where it's like, I've written all the books I want to write. Now I'm just kind of throwing my name on projects like the stuff he did with Bill Clinton, and it's basically like, I just am in it for the money at this point.
Literally, I think the only books he still writes are the Alex Cross series that was really popular. Mm-hmm. For a long time, they made it into several movies. I know Tyler Perry played in the last one. Almost everything else, he helps out with, but it's his co-author that's doing all of the work.
Right.
Yeah. I give him credit because a lot of those authors, I mean, Bill Clinton didn't, everyone knew who he was, but a lot of these authors were authors maybe you didn't know before. And because of James Patterson now, like their books are starting to check out.
Right.
But that one needs to stop writing. It was not good.
No, it was not good.
We are a little afraid. I'm kind of afraid. We did a Colleen Hoover.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know Colleen Hoover.
Oh, she's huge.
Yes. So we did her November 9 because it was our November podcast. Mm-hmm. We were not kind. I'm afraid the TikTok, because she's one of those that she published for years and no one really knew who she was. And then she got on social media, Instagram, and TikTok, and really exploded.
She's like the #1 most followed author on Goodreads.
Her books last year sold more than like the Bible and some of those that are like
she outsold James Patterson.
She outsold James Patterson. I hope she doesn't listen to that podcast. We were not kind. Again, though, it was a hilarious podcast. Like it's fun to listen to, even if it's that book was bad.
Yeah, I used to work in TV in Eastern North Carolina, and so on our morning show, we would book different people on the last hour, and so we would do like, musical guests or authors or whatever, and we had Nicholas Sparks on because he lives out there,
right?
And people are like so excited. They're like, Nicholas Sparks, like we love his stuff, and it's I've never actually read any of his books, but I know a lot of people like him. But people are like, what was he like? And I'm like, we had him on the show.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's one that apparently in real life is definitely not the same as what you read.
Yeah.
Well, what's the famous one is, Andy Griffith, apparently he lived in Mania all those years, and the people of Mania hated him. He was awful. He was mean. He was apparently a raging alcoholic. It's like, I know, it kind of ruins the, so people, I know, I'm sorry, I just ruined your childhood, didn't you? Sometimes, what do they say? Don't meet your heroes. Sometimes meet your heroes. We actually do have a lot of great authors come, and I don't think we've had too many issues with any of those. We've had some really great people. Yeah. And we have a few coming up. Mary Alice Monroe is a big one that's coming back. She writes a lot of beach reads. She's coming up this summer, and that will bring a crowd. Yeah. There'll be like 150 people in here. We'll be packed out, so that's always fun.
We got to interview Beth Macy when she came.
That was awesome.
For her Raising Lazarus tour. That was one of my favorite episodes that we got to do. It was fantastic. And it just tied in so perfectly. We'd already had a bunch of conversations about like Jem's new medication assisted treatment programs for opioid addiction. We've been kind of following this thread. And so it was cool to get to talk to her because she's had such a big cultural impact on,
definitely.
how we think about harm reduction and all of this other kind of stuff.
I got to go to her. Were you guys there? I got to go to the thing at Gaston College.
Oh,
that she
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. And then she said, and then like the next night she was going to be at the White House, and then the next night she was going to be on like, CBS Evening News talking about something.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just, but you pit stopped here.
She was just so real. Like she's such an honest and like down to earth speaker.
Yeah. And that book actually features Gaston County a little bit, which
Yeah,
is really, really cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know
Olive
that
Branch
one.
Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Yeah, she was great. She was great. And that series, if you've never seen,
Dope Sick, the Hulu show. It's on Hulu, right?
Hulu, yeah. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's got Michael Keaton, which I love just about anything Michael Keaton's.
Oh yeah. We got to talk about it because he won the Emmy for that role. So that was one we got to talk about. And I kept saying, I'm like, it sounds depressing, but go ahead and do it. And apparently she mentioned in that talk at Gaston College, she's already talking to Danny Strong, her showrunner, about Raising Lazarus. So I'm excited to see it. Maybe they'll film here. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Speaking of filming here,
Yes.
and I do have to go, unfortunately,
sorry.
because I've got
Sorry.
an 11 a.m. But our webmaster tipped us off that they're filming a indie film here in Gaston County, like other places too, but called Mother Couch. And it sounds odd, but it's about a mom that like is dealing with like depression and drug issues and like can't get off the couch. Sort of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the couch is not literally the mom. It's about the mom being on the couch.
Gotcha.
But Ewan McGregor is starring in it.
Ooh.
So she ran into him. Literally, she found out that where they were filming at her church.
Yeah.
And like he had like a trailer set up, and so it's like she got there and she's just like sat down and had lunch with the cast and crew and was like just hanging out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good for Angela. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was super excited about it. She's got a picture of her daughter like freaking out on camera, and you can see Ewan McGregor behind her.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's awesome. Well, good for little Gaston County.
Right?
We're not little, we're a great county, but good for us for attracting some big names and big stars. That's
Yeah.
fun.
They were filming over at Value Village like 2 weeks ago.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up. Thank you for listening. You can listen to the Gaston Speaks podcast at gastonspeakspodbean.com or on your preferred podcasting app. You can listen to Savvy Citizen at savvycitizen.podbean.com or on your preferred podcasting app. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here, y'all.
Absolutely. It was
Thank
awesome.
you.